Welcome to Letter to Philippi, our daily broadcast looking at Paul's letter to the Philippians. We'll be getting started on all of our streams soon, and we are now live on all of our streams. We're on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Live, and also on our website, lettertophilippi.org. Good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon. It's actually afternoon here. So we are going on our study today in Philippians chapter 1, verse 3, continuing through this section where Paul is thanking God for the Philippians. And this will be the focus of verses 3 through 11 of chapter 1, where Paul is sharing about his love for the Philippians. And we'll be going through this verse by verse each day. So we'll be going through these verses on Paul's thankfulness for the Philippians over the next 9 times that we're together. So we'll go through almost 2 weeks looking at this thankfulness that Paul has for the people in Philippi. Let me fix my camera here. Okay, so we're all on and going. So we're now going to be looking at Philippians chapter 1, verse 3, here on Letter to Philippi Live, a new Messianic Jewish theological teaching organization. And our first initiative here being the daily broadcast, Letter to Philippi, our live streaming study in Paul's letter to the Philippians. So we will get started with that and get my other recording going. Okay, so we'll be starting with a word of prayer, and then we'll go into our study for today. Oh Lord, you're good. We thank you. We bless your holy name. We thank you for each opportunity we have to look at your holy words, to look at the words of your servant Paul, and help us, Lord, to become more and more and more in the Messiah each day as we look at these holy words. Thank you, Lord, for the Messiah who is our life, in whose name we pray. Amen. So again, this Letter to Philippi Live, a daily streaming broadcast looking at Paul's letter to the Philippians. Today we're going to be looking at Philippians chapter 1, 3, the beginning of a section in the book of verses 3 through 11, where Paul's talking about his thankfulness and prayer for the Philippians. So in verse 3 we read, I'll put that up on the screen. Add that to the screen here. And verse 3 reads, I thank my God every time I think of you. Let me read that again. I thank my God every time I think of you. In Paul's letters to the Galatians and Corinthians, Paul wrote using harsh terms to correct the false teaching and sinful activities that plague these Messianic communities, and spoke in harsh words, and right from the very beginning called them to account. For one, in Galatia, being that there was the false teaching by those typically called Judaizers who were telling the Gentiles and Gentile Yeshua believers in Galatia that they had to be circumcised and observe Torah to be fully a part of the people of God, or even as they were looked upon as being super believers by being both a Gentile adherent of Yeshua, a Gentile come to believe in Yeshua, and also a converting to Judaism, also to somehow being doubly saved, doubly a part of the people of God. And in Corinth, you have the issue of sexual sin among leaders in the community, and that had to be dealt with. But here, Paul's openings to his words to the people in Philippi are these deep words of love and care. And whenever he thinks of the people in Philippi, he thinks about them with love, and he thanks God for them. Every recurrence in his mind, the people in Philippi, Paul would stop and thank God for them because of their faithfulness to the work of the good news of the Messiah, their faithfulness in serving side by side with Paul, and their deep love for him, the deep shared love that he had with the Philippians. So every occurrence of his thinking about people of Philippi, he did so with thankfulness to God, because it was from God that he received this great love for them. So Paul here can warmly share with his love with the people in Philippi because of their working together with him for the faith in God and for the work of the Messiah. And Paul can warmly share his love and concern for the Philippians and make them aware how thankful he is to God for them and their love for him and their work for the Messiah. As will be seen later in the letter, Paul has derived much joy from the Philippians and is thankful to God for their work with him and for him in spreading the good news of the Messiah. Paul also had good memories of how the Messianic community in Philippi showed him love and care, and he focused on these memories whenever he thinks of them. So Paul here, when he looks to the Philippians, when he thinks of the Philippian community, he can say, I thank my God every time I think of you. But Paul here has such a deep love for the people in Philippi, a deep bond with them because of their shared work for the Messiah, that he can say, whenever I think of you, I thank God. And this is a powerful way of understanding this relationship between him and the Philippians, that they had such a deep bond together, a deep love they shared for one another and for the Messiah and for the God of Israel, that on every time that Paul thought of the people in Philippi, he did so with thankfulness to God for them because of their working side by side with him, their care for him, their financial support of him, this being the one Messianic community that he allowed to financially support him because of the bond that they had, and that because their giving to him would not set up a client-patron relationship, which was common in that time, that someone who was a supporter of a teacher, or in Paul being an emissary of the Messiah, there was an expected sense of control that the person giving the money had over the work of the one that they were supporting, whether it was a teacher or philosopher. So that actually there was a concern that the people who were the financiers could actually tell the person where they were to go, they were to teach. And Paul here didn't want to set up the relationship with any of the congregations that he served with, but with people in Philippi, and they had an understanding that they were supporting him and that he was free to go where God led him, that their financial gifts to him were not dependent on Paul following where they want him to go, but there was a true giving sacrificially. It was a giving, as we see later. Paul will speak about their giving to him as being a sacrificial offering to God, and he thanked God for them giving to him for the sake of him doing his work of making the Messiah known. So Paul here can say that whenever he thinks of them, he thanks God for them. And we'll see more as we go through these other verses, as we're going through now a one verse per day of the letter of Philippians. But Paul here can say in Philippians chapter 1, verse 3, I thank my God every time I think of you. And Paul here is letting them know that he has a deep love for them, and his love for them makes him thankfulness to thank God every time he thinks of them. And this is setting up the basis of their relationship, the deep love that he has for them. And we'll see that as we continue through these next 8 verses, going through where Paul is sharing about his love for the Philippians, is praying for them, and the bond that they have. As we continue now tomorrow, looking at verse 4, Philippians chapter 1, verse 4, and Paul sharing about his prayers for them, and he always prays for them with joy. And that verse reads, whenever I pray for all of you, I always pray with joy. So we'll be looking at that verse tomorrow as we continue our study through Paul's letter to the Philippians, now going verse by verse, one verse per day through Paul's letter to the Philippians, here on Letter to Philippi Live. So some of these classes will be shorter. This one will be about 10 or 11 minutes. There are other verses, especially in the Messianic hymn, and then chapter 3, which will be 40 minutes, 50-minute classes as we have more material on each of the individual verses. So, but this time through, our 5th time through the book of Philippians, we're going to do one verse per day. And as I said, this was a shorter verse today, but a powerful verse to understand the deep relationship that Paul had with the Philippians, that every time he thought of people in Philippi, he thanked God for them. And that was the bond that he had with these people in Philippi, this community that cares so much for him and he cares so much for them. And we'll see him continuing to share about his love for them, his prayer for them, and his words of encouraging them to live their lives to become more and more and more in the Messiah. So thank you for watching today. This is Letter to Philippi Live, an initiative of Letter to Philippi, a new Messianic Jewish theological organization. On the bottom scroll of our screen, you can see our website, lettertophilippi.org. And there you can go and ask any questions about our work. You can leave prayer requests when we're praying for you. You can purchase a copy of our Messianic commentary that this class is based on our resources page. You can make a contribution to our work on our giving page. We truly appreciate those who support our work financially. We have our mission statement online. We have our Messianic Jewish book reviews. And any information you want in Letter to Philippi, you can find there. As I said, if you have any questions or prayer requests, please send those in. We'll be looking over them, answering your questions, praying for your prayer requests. And again, as we appreciate those who support our work, you can make a contribution there on our giving page, giving toward the work of Letter to Philippi. We're a new Messianic Jewish theological organization. We're a nonprofit organization and are dependent on those who watch our classes and read our materials to support our work. So thank you for watching. Tomorrow we'll be looking at Philippians chapter 1, verse 4 in our ongoing study of Paul's letter to the Philippians. So thank you for watching. Go to lettertophilippi.org for more information. And we'll see you tomorrow as we look at Philippians chapter 1, verse 4. And Paul's speaking about his praying for the people in Philippi, where he says, whenever I pray for all of you, I always pray with joy. And we'll look at that verse in more depth tomorrow here on Letter to Philippi Live. Letter to Philippi Live is an initiative of lettertophilippi.org, a new Messianic Jewish theological teaching organization. My name is Sean Emslie. I'm the founder and teacher of this class. And we thank you for watching, and we will see you tomorrow. Shalom. And tomorrow in Philippians 1, verse 4. Have a great day.